ASUS is first to the market with a 32-inch 8K mini LED panel. The ProArt display PA32KCX is aiming at pro users and corporate customers with really deep pockets, and it has entered the market for approximately $8,800 or in the EU with €9,500. This video is our take on what it has to offer and which competition it faces in the market. ASUS has clearly set the focus on maxing out performance with this ProArt display. In our opinion, the 32-inch display represents the maximum size for working at short distances. The highlight of the PA32KCX is clearly its 8K mini LED panel, which offers illumination using 4032 local dimming zones. The high pixel density amounts to 275 pixels per inch, which is above the 220 ppi of the MacBook but below the 458 ppi of the iPhone X, though one is never as close to the monitor as to a smartphone. In comparison, the Dell Ultrasharp UP3218KA 8K FUHD monitor has slightly higher 280 ppi with a 31.5-inch diameter. Thanks to the 1200 nits peak brightness, the monitors are bright, although 1000 nits without partial patch limitation are enabled in the long run. With 10-bit color depths and quantum dot technology, the monitor offers 100% sRGB, 99% Adobe RGB, 90-70% DCI-P3 color gamut, and supports for the Rec 2020 color space. According to ASUS, the panel should guarantee a color accuracy of delta E smaller than 1 and score points above all through the built-in motorized colorimeter, which allows for an in-house calibration at any time. This way, professional color accuracy is intended to be maintained all the times. The resolution with 8K UHD, which corresponds to 7680 x 4320 pixels, is also anything but normal. ASUS additionally promotes Lux Pixel for the ProArt display, which is intended to provide the anti-reflective coating in order to achieve low reflections. Reflections are reduced to a minimum so that we could not detect any reflections in everyday use. The protective cover at the top and on the sides has also contributed positively in that regard. A strong argument for the ProArt display beside the 8K mini LED panel is the integrated colorimeter. You can have all the color spaces or only specific color spaces calibrated at a desired time via the menu or simply started directly. The monitor is not usable during calibration period, so be sure to plan for this. The OSD offers the necessary options here to assist you. Furthermore, calibration via Calman's calibration software and Light Illusion Color Space CMS is supported. We have not tested this part though, as the software was not provided to us. ASUS furthermore offers its own ProArt hardware calibration software, which works in both SDR and HDR modes. The software can be used to save color parameters profiles directly on the internal scalar IC chip of the ProArt monitor, which allows for the system-independent management. With ProArt calibration, regular calibration intervals can also be defined. The tool is available for Windows and macOS, and we tried it under macOS. Even though the software recognizes the monitor, the calibration could not be started because the ASUS calibration device was not found in the list and the ProArt option was thus not usable. After an update of the software, the calibration could finally be started via the app. One run for the P3 profile took us about 40 minutes via the OSD control and about 30 minutes via the app. We could clearly advise an automatic calibration here so that you won't have to wait for the availability of the monitor. After the calibration, we were able to see the change in brightness, contrast and color saturation. At the end of the run, you are getting the PDF report and matching profile, which you can use or load into the display storage. The ProArt display PA32 wants to make a good name for itself and live up the high price. For this purpose, ASUS also includes a shading cover, which must be assembled from several parts. During this process, screws are used to fix the plastic elements, which are first attached to the sides and then at the top. The inside of the elements is covered with a black matte material that eliminates light scattering and reflections. This primarily darkens the edges of the screen, which may seem strange at first glance if you are not used to it. However, the incoming light from the side and from above is held back well by it, even if the covers of the competition protrude significantly further. After a short period of adjustment, we found the shading cover to be acceptable and did not remove it until the end of our test period. The ProArt display also tries to score points through good features, among other things. Thanks to two Thunderbolt 4 ports that support daisy chaining, one can perfectly supply PCs and notebooks. The separate video inputs then include a DisplayPort 2.1 with high bandwidth and also two HDMI 2.1 ports for graphic cards. The monitor also offers a KVM switch that supports 3 USB 3.2 Type-A and 1 USB 3.2 Type-C for peripheral devices. The display comes with a USB-C power delivery with up to 96 watt and enough to supply high-end notebooks. The stand is pretty massive and can be tilted by +32° to -5°, swiveled by +or-30° and rotated by +or-90° for use in portrait format. The height of the ProArt display can also be adjusted by 10 cm. The monitor can additionally be installed on a monitor arm via the standard VESA mount, and a Kensington lock is included for shared environments. During use, the monitor does not wobble and the stand is part of the scope of delivery, which costs an additional €1,000 for the Apple Pro Display XDR, for example. When looking at the specification of the monitor and searching for comparable models, one finds there's hardly anything of this caliber so far. On price comparison websites in the EU, there are many models with 5K resolution, but larger ones are hard to find. We see the Dell Ultrasharp UP3218KA, one of the main competitors of the ProArt display PA32KCX, which is the closest with a diagonal of 31.5-inch diameter and the same 8K FUHD resolution. However, this one comes with an IPS panel and not even OLED, has weaker specification but also costs only €2,800. ASUS demands between €9,000 and €10,000 for the ProArt display PA32KCX, although it was positioned for €8,500 in the meantime. At this rate, you'll be able to buy 3 of Dell monitors for the price of just one ProArt display from ASUS, but Dell presumably has different target group in mind and the Pro features are missing here. This makes a direct comparison somewhat difficult. The other competitor for the PA32 is clearly the Apple Pro Display XDR with nano texture. Apple introduced these monitors in 2019 as an innovation and an update is probably pending, but as it is, ASUS seems to be targeting this monitor. With a resolution of 6016 x 3385 pixels, the XDR cannot keep up with the PA32 at about the same panel size, but it was long considered a truly remarkable monitor that primarily appealed to pro users and production companies. Apple used an IPS panel, but for the conditions at the time, mini LED technology with full area local dimming was not available. With the Pro stand and nano texture glass, the Pro Display XDR officially costs €7,600. This already comes closer to the price of the PA32, and we suspect that ASUS prices the additional features high, as the target group should be interested in those for daily work. At ASUS, we only find the ColorEdge CG3100X with a 30.5-inch diameter so far. Even if this one offers Pro features, the monitor launched in 2025 and only supports a 4K DCI resolution. This is significantly less than what the PA32 from ASUS has to offer. In addition, ASUS has set the price for the monitor at around €5,000, which kind of backed the prosumer price from ASUS. ASUS delivered the monitor in a large box designed in the typical ProArt design. The majority is kept in black color and stickers on the side provide information about the exact model price. The buffers created inside the card box are intended to ensure protection during transport. Openings on the side help in carrying the monitor. At this point, no surprises meet us and it follows the standard. Inside the box we find the monitor and the stand in individual parts. Included in the scope of delivery are, among other things, the color pre-calibration report, a DisplayPort 2.1 cable, an HDMI ultra high-speed cable, the screen cover, a power cable, the stand with quick release lock instructions, a Thunderbolt 4 cable and the USB-C to USB-A cable. We had the chance to use the ProArt PA32KCX over a long period of time and are actually used to its smaller sibling, the ProArt PA72GCV, a 72-inch 5K monitor which is our daily monitor. The switch from 72 to 33 inches brings its advantages and disadvantages, but the biggest difference is in the resolution, because one does not run approximately 8K natively, instead it is usually tuned to a downscaled UI ratio. In macOS 26.2 we had to set it to 3840 x 2160 pixel to be able to see icons or user interface properly. Text and images were reproduced crisp. We could not detect bleeding on the sides, and the backlighting appeared evenly and well balanced to us. We have switched to P3 preset using the OSD, which reproduces the color rendering excellently on macOS thanks to the profiles, at least for our taste and experience. We daily work with the Canon CR2 RAW files in 8192 x 5464 pixel and the P3 color space. We mainly use the MacBook Air with the M4 chip, which also quickly pushed it to its limits. We must admit that it handled both the resolution and the parallel use of several applications surprisingly well. Video editing with Final Cut Pro also worked well because of the vast screen space, and works with 4K video material was working well. Buyers of this monitor will rather work with more expensive workstation, but the monitor can also be used with notebooks that just cost an eighth of the monitor price. Very pleasant at this point was the one conveniently connect to the monitor to the MacBook via the Thunderbolt 4 cable, and everything simple worked. We also worked with it on a Windows 11 system where we mostly experienced with games, a scenario for which the monitor was probably not really made. The NVIDIA GeForce RTX 5080 Founders Edition reached its limits to a degree at this resolution. In the context, the question also arose whether DLSS with and without frame generation makes a difference for 8K gaming and could help boost the game experience or not. Counter-Strike 2 without FSR was going at 68 FPS with a very high graphic preset and thus quite playable. Here the 7680 x 4320 resolution is indeed a burden for the system, but it remains within limits for the graphic card caliber. With the FSR Ultra quality enabled, we could get to 85 FPS on average. In Battlefield 6, at Ultra graphic preset, an average of mere 22 FPS was possible, and the game was no fun at this point. Activating DLSS with multi-frame generation at 2, we were able to get to 87 FPS. The game was laggy at times. In Valorant with high graphic preset we played with the 8K resolution and were able to reach 227 FPS. The game does not stand out for the highest level of detail, but the frame rates are good. The game does not support DLSS or FSR, which is why I cannot fall back on that. Although the display comes with an activated adaptive sync, it is not a decisive feature with a max refresh rate of 60 Hz. For the price of the monitor, one would rather buy an absurdly good gaming PC, but we looked at the scenario anyway. We would also like to clarify that we did not by far exhaust all the menu items and features, as we consider picture-in-picture for everyday life to be irrelevant, even though there are certainly users who use it actively. Those who considered the features relevant to us and exhausted them as much as possible. What caught our attention as annoying was the noise level of the display when working. This is because the panel produces heat which must be repeatedly dissipated by fans. Thus it is sometimes louder, sometimes quieter, but it's basically audible all the time. With our measuring device, we measured a sound pressure level of around 46 dB at a distance of 20 cm. ASUS also installs speakers in this display. There's little information about these except for the specification that there are 2 to 3 watt speakers. They do not offer outstanding sound but are acceptable for everyday use. Voices are reproduced clearly. For music they are also usable to a degree depending on the genre, but cannot remotely keep up with external speakers or headphones. With the ProArt display PA32KCX, ASUS delivers its first 32-inch 8K mini LED monitor, and it's also the first monitor on the market with such specifications. The target group is small, which is underlined not just by the very high retail price of around $8,800 or €9,500. We see primarily business customers in the Pro segment here who work with 8K video and image material and have the necessary money to spare. The high price is not only justified by the 8K UHD mini LED panel, with which ASUS has unique selling point. In addition, we are getting an integrated colorimeter that can be operated via the OSD or the ASUS ProArt calibration software at any time. Matching profiles and reports are created to ensure the high color accuracy whenever needed. We found the DCI-P3 color space most pleasant on the Mac because it looks more natural to us. But there are also others such as sRGB, BT2020 or also DCOM to choose from. Interestingly, one could actually work well at the high resolution with a MacBook Air with an M4 chip, even though the target group will probably use significantly stronger workstation. Even though it is probably not intended for the target group, one can quite definitely play many games in 8K resolution with a GeForce RTX 5080. DLSS and FSR also contribute here to further increase the frame rates. The build quality of the monitor is at a very high level and the stand is also pretty solid. It allows for rotation of the monitor into vertical mode, but also height adjustment. Furthermore, there's a shading cover that is included in the scope of delivery. The monitor has many positive aspects, but is not flawless. The noise level in operation caught our attention again and again. We understand that the panel produces excess heat, however, certainly one could get the noise of the fans quiet with larger fans. Also, the manufacturer's warranty of 3 years is not appropriate in our opinion, given the high price, even if ASUS extends this to 5 years after registration. The ProArt Display PA32KCX monitor is definitely innovative and provides an outlook on future mini LED monitors that could become mainstream at some point.